Well, good morning. My name is Tom. I come to you from the Rustic log cabin in Northern Maine. Welcome to my cabin this morning. Get yourself a cup of coffee. What we're going to talk about today is what I consider camp staples. Whether it's here at this camp or whether it's over at Beaver Creek Deer Camp or in my own home. But here at the cabin, this stuff, I took this off the shelf. Now, I didn't take all of it. I brought out what I consider many meals that I could make here at the cabin. Everything from the rifle you see in front to the butcher knives to the ingredients that I would take. And why am I doing a video like this? Well, you don't have to look very far, and I'm not sure a lot of people quite grasp or understand what's going on right now, or forget about in this country, around the world. I think it's a grand experiment that has failed. Some people got in their heads that we could go global and tie everything together. Well, it looks like it's failing where I stand. And why do I feel that way? Well, there's a lot of people on this globe. There's more people than this globe will support. How do they do it? How do they keep us fed? They keep us fed through great fields of produce and stuff like that. But the only way that they can get it is through fertilizer. Fertilizer. Simple as that. You don't get massive food growth on a plot of land without poking the fertilizer to it. So, is food shortages going to be an issue? I really think it's going to be. I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I'm not trying to be a prepper. All that's done, gone by. If you haven't started looking to the next 6 months to 2 years with some hardship in there, it's time to start. Is it too late for you to start? No, not yet. It's going to be. Time is ticking. So let's get back to this fertilizer. Why is that such a big deal? Well, we're putting sanctions right now on Russia. What does Russia supply to most of the globe? Fertilizer. Plain and simple. So right now, this country has shut off Russia from shipping their fertilizer to this country, which is for our food fields. And the number that I saw the other day was over $1 billion. Over $1 billion worth of fertilizer comes to this country from Russia, as well as other countries. You know, we're not talking, they are the world supplier in fertilizer. I never knew that until just recently. But how does that affect us? Well, if we don't get the fertilizer, they're not going to grow food. And what food is going to be grown is going to be very expensive. So there comes a point to how much do you spend on food? Can you spend it on food? So if you're not looking ahead, now's the time to be looking ahead. And I do believe, and I think we're going to start seeing it by next fall as far as this. And I've been talking this stuff for a few years now. I never really thought, even back then, I've always prepped for the future, but I never dreamed of this scenario in my thought process. My thought process is just foul weather. You've lost work in the state of Maine. We have a harsh winter. Being a contractor, sometimes you work, sometimes you don't. Especially the 30 years that I was in it. So I've always kind of looked for short-term solutions to the next winter. I never try to be behind the 8 ball going into any winter. But in that same thought process comes now. If there's going to be a food shortage and it's going to be expensive, a lot of the stuff that I've been practicing is not going to change. But I wanted to show you guys some of the staples that I have on hand for what I'm talking about. This is a Dutch oven. I can cook many, many meals in this Dutch oven. That's what I've got to, if I can get my hand. Now, these would be luxury items. If I can't get my hands on a few carrots and onions, And potatoes are grown here in this state, so I believe getting my hands on potatoes will, who knows if it'll change or not. I'm sure that's covered with fertilizer as well. But it doesn't matter, because you can still make a soup with rice. This is a bulk storage of brown rice. I have white rice and I have brown rice. So you take that rice, you put in that Dutch oven with some water. You've got the rifle in front of you to get a rabbit, to get a bird, any kind of small game would go great in that pot if you're fortunate enough to have a bear in the freezer, or maybe in your case you might have a piece of beef in the freezer. Anything can go in this pot, chicken, beef, fish, and you can mix it with anything with that rice. You're not after the best meal that you can buy if you're having a food shortage or food is so expensive you can't afford it. You're after a meal that will feed a family for a reasonable price. And we went through that back in the 70s. If anybody old enough to remember it, back in the 70s was a lean time in this country. And then you'd want yourself, and this is the type of stuff that I put on the shelf already, is some bouillon cubes. Not an emergency, because you can spice this up your own, but it does help to spice up the rice and whatever you're throwing in this pot with 2 or 3 of these bouillon cubes. And that's where the rest of these spices come in. Say you don't have a chicken bouillon cube. Well, you got some other spices that will keep forever on a shelf. And I make sure that they're on my shelf, especially for making these one-pot meals for feeding me or feeding the family. A good thing to have is red cayenne pepper. That stuff will add a little bit of kick to anything that you put in that pot. And it doesn't take very much to get that kick out of there. But it will give that pot some flavor. Another spice I keep on hand is hot sauce. A few splashes of this will liven things up. And one of the spices that I really like to have on hand is just Old Bay seasoning. You can add this to anything that you're cooking. I don't care what it is. Your fish batter, a pot in the meal, a one-pot meal in the Dutch oven. It's just a great spice to have around because you can add it to absolutely every meal that you want to play with. Another thing I keep on hand is a little bit of Cajun spices. This is garlic. You see, I buy this in the bulk because I use a lot of garlic on hand. In a lot of my, especially when I'm cooking fish, I love the garlic. One thing you definitely want to have on hand, well, this is sugar. I thought I lugged out a salt. Sugar, my world, I want to make sure I got some sugar on hand, especially the brown sugar. I use this in a lot of my cooking. That's what and the other thing you can do in here is you can make desserts. One of the things that I like to make is a very easy cinnamon roll. And I'll do a video on that because it is so simple to make cinnamon rolls in these Dutch ovens. Always have flour. With that flour is my breakfast, that's my fish batter, that's anything. That's biscuits, it's bread. You can see in my videos the homemade bread that I make on the campfire. That's the flour, salt, all that stuff is absolutely what's at this cabin. And one of the things that I stocked up on, because for one thing, it's a sealed can and it'll probably last forever, is baking powder. Because I want the ability to be able to make the cinnamon rolls. Even if times are tight, I want the ability to be able to make the cinnamon rolls. I want the ability to be able to make the bread in my cast iron pans like you've seen in my videos. So I made sure that before we got into this crisis, that I did have some of this on hand. Because without this, your bread won't rise. Without this, your pie crust won't fluff up, all that stuff. And the other thing that I keep on hand is cornstarch, because that's another one of them. This is great. Anybody that cooks knows the value of cornstarch. I use it as sometimes I use it as a fish batter material to get my fish batter. I have different recipes for my batter. I'm not stuck on just one. And that's the thing I kind of wanted to throw out here today. And the other thing I have, you see down here, that's powdered milk. You absolutely got to have some powdered milk kicking around. For one thing, it doesn't go bad. You got it on hand, and you use it in quite a few things. From my oatmeal in the morning for breakfast to a pancake mix. I have a pancake mix that I put together. It's a dry mix. Just add water to the pancake mix for here at the cabin. That's exactly what I want and need. I don't have anything for recipes that's too complicated. All of these spices that you see here in front of me, you see a big jug of lemonade here. Well, this lemonade, that's how I drink my water. I don't drink soda. All that I drink is coffee and lemon water. So I buy my lemon juice in the bulk like that. And right now I've got 2 of those on hand, and I probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 ounces I put in a quart jar like that, and that makes my lemon water that I drink. So I drink lemon water and I drink coffee. And I think I've just about covered everything on this table other than baking soda. That's another one of those ingredients that you need for making your own pancake mix. Stuff like that, anything that you can start making yourself is going to drop the cost of it, especially if you've got the ingredients on the shelf. Now, I'm not saying go out and buy a truckload of flour, because flour does have a shelf life. But at least have enough on that you have enough flour on hand that you could ride out the next 6 months to a year. And be gathering stuff as we go. Whenever you get a chance to stumble across something, then if it's there, grab it. Because, and again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I'll tell you what, when they start talking about shortage in fertilizer, there's not a piece of food that you touch that's not grown in some way, shape, or form that doesn't have fertilizer attached to it. And as far as organic and all that, you're not going to feed this country on organic. And if you could, it's probably going to be so expensive that they couldn't afford it anyways. I'm all for organic, so don't think that I'm knocking organic. I am not. If given the opportunity, I buy organic every chance I get. Most of the time in the summertime up here at the cabin, I shop at regular roadside farm stands. That's to me, that's the way to get the freshest produce. And if you would be interested in donating to help support the message that this channel is putting out there, as far as bringing hunting and fishing to life for everyone, the great experience of the great outdoors, check me out on the Patreon link above my head. And for $5 a month, you can be a big supporter of this channel. And I thank you ahead of time, and I will see you in the video. There's the different spices that I keep here at the cabin. I also have a whole pile of knives because I do my own butchering. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's a bear, a deer, a moose, it doesn't really matter. I do my own butchering and then package it and all that stuff. But these are the spices that the East Grand Woodsman has on hand 24/7. And especially for the Dutch oven cooking. If you watched any of my videos, I do a lot of Dutch oven cooking here at the cabin. And we have what's called Papa's Cookbook. I've been adding recipes to this cookbook for, I can't even tell you how many years. Most of my recipes came from camping trips, fishing trips. That's where I learned to cook. Here at the cabin, I learned to cook. If you go for 10 or 15, I've done several 15, 20-day fishing trips. I don't eat out of a can. I want to eat good cooking food. So I basically learned how all the cooking that you see me do was learned at a campsite on the backside of Madagamon Lake here in the state of Maine. So, but I hope that you take something from this video as to what I think is a good opportunity to start putting some of these spices away. I think this is a better route than putting in a whole bunch of canned goods from the grocery store. Well, number one, that stuff doesn't taste very good. And number two, it's going to be expensive if you can even get it at all. So how much money are you willing to tie up in a pile of canned goods down in the basement? I know a lot of people, that's the only opportunity. But here, I have my canner, I have my canning jars, and I have lots of spices. Spices to me, and I call all this spices, or staples, whatever you want to call it. These are the things that help my diet out. And then the rest of it I take with a fishing pole and I take with a rifle. So spring fishing is on its way. We just got done with fishing this winter. We caught a ton of fish. We ate really good. And today I'm getting ready. That's kind of why I'm doing this kind of video. Today I'm getting ready to move on to, well, I'm going to make some a fish nugget supper out here for supper. So I'm looking forward to that. We've got 4 feet of snow here on the ground. So I guess what we do is we play with the stove, play with the Dutch oven, and have a good supper and have lots of coffee. So I will see you next week, and thank you for joining me here this morning.